This is Real Housewives of the Kingdom, a sweet space where you'll hear from the hearts of fellow housewives in the kingdom of God, some just like you and some really different in various walks of life. We will talk about how God is walking with us through the good and the hard. I pray you'll be encouraged and entertained as we laugh and sometimes cry together. Most of all, I hope it reminds you we're in this together and you are not alone. We are still walking through the Children and Parenting series, and today is my first episode with multiple guests, 3 to be exact. I'm interviewing my sister Victoria and our sweet family friends who are also sisters, Anastacia and Alethea. All 3 ladies had a baby during COVID, and I just thought it would be really cool to talk about their experiences of bringing children into the world at such a crazy time in history. We are also talking about why the world state didn't deter them from their call to motherhood. They are sharing some incredible advice for raising little warriors for the kingdom and enjoying your motherhood. I just love them so much, and I'm so proud of the women of God they have become. I know you are going to love them too. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Real Housewives of the Kingdom. I am so excited. We are in our series on children and parenting. And today I have 3 guests who are super, super close to my heart. It is my baby sister, Victoria. And I also have 2 sisters, Alethea and Anastacia, who are our chosen family. So we are not blood related, but we are family. And I've known them since they were in the womb. So they have been just dear friends all the way through, but they're adults now. I assure you, they're mothers now, which is why I have them on the podcast as well. And so I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Welcome to the show, Allie, Anna, and Tori, which is what I call them affectionately.
Thank you
so much for having us.
Yes.
So to be here. I have loved listening to your podcast.
This is Anna talking.
Oh,
so
I'm sorry. I'm Anna, Anastacia, but everyone just calls me Anna, or this family calls me Anna Banana. And I've known these girls literally my entire life. I am married to my husband, Timothy, or Tim, and we have a little baby girl who just turned 1, and her name is Cosette. We call her Cozy Lou. And I work part-time at a local cute little coffee shop and gift shop, but most of the time I'm home with my baby girl.
And then I'm Victoria, her Tori, Titi. And I'm Caroline's sister, her youngest sister. I am married to my husband, Bobby, and we have our son, Connor Mendez, who is actually just a couple days apart from Cozy Girl. So me and Anna kind of went through the whole pregnancy. Like literally we had our babies like a couple days apart. So that's super fun. I work from home now with my husband. I used to work in events. And then when COVID kind of hit, I took a turn and I kind of went head in and helping him with his business. And now we both do real estate here in Southern California. We do commercial and residential real estate. And that allows me now to also just be home with my sweet little baby boy.
Hi, I'm Allie, or Alethea. I am married to my husband, Nate, and we have 2 little boys. One is 3, and one is 1.5. And so I am a stay-at-home mom with them, and then I do social media managing for a couple different businesses, just at home on the side.
I would like you to each tell me how long you've been walking with Jesus, or tell me about your relationship with the Lord. So Anna, you start.
I have been blessed to be raised in a family that has raised me in the way of walking with the Lord, living my entire life. So I can't actually recollect the time where I wasn't following Jesus. So it's been a lifelong thing. Probably accepted Jesus when I was like 4 or 5 in my heart, and then it's been a development ever since then. I really do think it was in my tween years where I really took my faith to be my own and definitely started diving into what it looked like to be a Christian for myself, not just because my parents raised me that way, but because I actually believed it to be true and it to be something that I wanted to strive for. And it's been a continuous sanctification and growing process.
A good word, sanctification.
Sure.
So yeah, same with me, where like our family has always been walking with the Lord. And so my entire life I've known God. I do remember like a couple vivid moments. Like I remember being in Calvary Chapel. I don't know if I was like 3 or 4, and they would do the altar call at the end of the service. And I remember my first time grasping, oh my gosh, like I want Jesus in my heart. And like, I remember I just started crying and my mom was like, Tori, what's wrong? And I was like, Jesus needs to be in my heart. So I remember that vivid moment, but I was so young at that point. But I do remember another time. It was when we were going to another church. I believe it was in youth group, and that's when I really truly grasped the whole concept of it. Maybe it was like
the weight of it.
11 or 12, yeah. And then ever since the same. It's just, it's a journey and getting closer to God every step of the way.
And Allie?
Well, I promise it's not broken record, but obviously I'm married with Anna, and we have the same parents, so I've been a Christian my whole life, and I don't feel like I ever had like a huge moment where I thought like, oh, I'm closer to God, or I made a decision. I feel like just growing up continuously, I just always thought that is the way it was, and I never really questioned it until I saw other people turn away from the faith, and I realized like what I had was real, and I would never do that. But I don't ever remember a day where I was like, wow, this is the day I became a Christian. I think it was just kind of a lifelong decision, something I was trained up to believe, and I take it as my own now.
That's awesome. So today the topic is having babies during COVID. So these three ladies bravely had these babies in COVID. COVID was a wild time, and we can all, no matter what side of the line you fall on so many of the different things that went with it, we can all agree that it was a crazy time. And so I just thought it would be really cool to chat about what it was like, because for those of you who are listening who wondered, what was it like to have a baby during COVID? And were there people who actually decided to get pregnant, not just like, oh, look, she got pregnant. Oh, well, I guess what's going to happen? And so I just wanted you to hear these ladies' hearts. That is what we are diving into right now. Do you guys all always want to be parents?
Yes. I wasn't sure who was going to start. I remember I loved having baby dolls. I loved having Barbies, like taking care of dolls. Like I always wanted to find my Prince Charming, have a baby, like, always have a family.
Yeah, definitely. Like I always wanted to have kids. Like that was kind of my lifelong goal. Get married, have a baby as fast as possible. Like, I got pregnant on my honeymoon. Like I wanted it so bad.
You did exactly what you set out to do.
Yeah,
Accomplished.
A huge like inspiration for me was your other sister, Savannah. Like I just grew up watching her be a mom, and the way she handled children and the way she was a mom was the most inspiring thing to me. I wanted that, and like she just brought so much joy to being a mom and having babies. I wanted desperately. I'm like so happy that I had a baby right away. Like not the best.
Same with me too. If you would have asked me any time in my entire life what my aspirations for life would have been, it was always wife and mom. Other things came and went, different dream jobs or places I wanted to be, but wife and mom was always top of the list. When Tim and I got married, the time frame definitely shifted around. He wanted babies right off the bat. For me, we didn't live together until we got married. And so when I finally got to live with my husband and we were having such a fun time, we kind of had to compromise on the time frame to prepare my heart for that time, because I definitely wanted to be all in when I had babies. I didn't want to be this quasi person struggling between work and babies and all that kind of stuff. I'm super blessed and super happy with the baby girl that we have.
And Tori and Bobby waited a little bit too.
Yeah.
But either way, it's like, and that's kind of a rare thing I feel like in our society. It used to be very normal to want to get married and have kids. And now it's actually more rare for people to be like, for marriage to even be like their first thing. So I think it's really cool because, I mean, our families, that's another reason why our families have been so close, because we have had a lot of the same ideals in terms of what's important in life. Did any of you have expectations on how having your children would be?
I definitely did have expectations about how it would be, and with having Duke, my firstborn son, besides the birth that was kind of different than I had expected it to be, it really went along very smoothly and just as I had pictured it. Like I had said, Savannah was a huge inspiration to me, and I felt, I mean, we were living next door to each other, and like I was working for her, and it just seemed very much how I had envisioned my life to being a mom. And I think when I had Leif and the world had drastically shifted. The expectations I had for him, which were it to be the way it was when I had Duke, just with 2 boys instead of 1. It wasn't like that at all in a lot of ways. Like, just like when I came home from the hospital, people didn't bring me meals because it was COVID. I couldn't, the first day I had Duke, we went downtown and we got coffee and we took a walk. You couldn't do that. Duke was 2 weeks old and we went to Disney World. There were just a lot of things that I had expected that were going to be the same with Leif that were completely different than they were with Duke. And that was really hard for me postpartum wise as well. I went into depression after Leif, and with Duke, it was like really seriously like sunshines and rainbows. My first baby, this was the best thing ever. And I think that was really hard, especially comparing number 1 to number 2, even though as a baby, I loved them equally and they were just as good of a gift as each other. Right. But life surrounding them was so drastically different that it was hard to see the way I loved Duke and enjoyed my life when I had Duke, and how when Leif was born, even though I enjoyed him fully, life around him I didn't enjoy. And it wasn't fun and exciting. It was weird.
Well, and it's interesting too, because so you got, let's see, what month was Leif born?
So Leif was September, which actually for COVID was actually kind of a break. So it was really intense from March to, I want to say like June. And then June to the end of like, I want to say the beginning of October, COVID shut down again. Like things got really strict again. There was this little tiny break between June and October that seemed freer. And in the hospital, I didn't have to wear a mask. I was tested for COVID, but it wasn't required that I wore a mask, and little things like that were kind of softer than they were again in October. So there was like this sweet spot, I guess.
Well, and you got pregnant with him before everything got too crazy.
Yeah, I got pregnant with him in December 2019. Yeah.
And we had kind of heard that honestly during that time, because we were in China in December of 2019, which is funny. I mean, I just thought it was like SARS, like, you know, we'd heard of other little things like, oh, this flu comes from China, whatever, like this has happened before. So you got pregnant with the thought that it would be the same as Duke, like nothing was going to change.
And even when the lockdown happened, it happened actually around my first son's first birthday. The lockdown happened. I remember for his first birthday, we went out, and as we were sitting outside at a little coffee shop, they started packing away their chairs and kicking everyone outside, like as we were there. And so I was already 3-4 months pregnant by that time, and it was 2 weeks. So I kind of had thought, like, by the time I have the baby, it's going to be over. My mom kept telling me that, like, don't worry about it. You'll have the baby. It'll be over. And we all thought that. And so honestly, throughout my pregnancy, COVID wasn't a huge thought in my mind because it was going to be over until I hit probably 7-8 months pregnant. And then I was like, you know, I'm going to have to start seeing this fact of how it's going to be. It was in the back of my head, like, no, when I have my baby, it will be back to the way it was like my first baby.
Now, Tori and Anna, the difference is that you guys got pregnant in 2020 to have a 2021 baby, and you guys decided to get pregnant during. Did you have an expectation of what your life would be like with your child?
Having the baby was pretty on par for what I expected. We've all been around babies our whole lives, so living with a baby and nurturing a baby wasn't necessarily a foreign concept to me, but life surrounding having a baby definitely was different than what I expected when I was dreaming about it as a teen or when we first got married. The pandemic definitely, it rocked our world. It turned it upside down. So Tim lost his job. He was on a good trajectory for his career, editing for a big clothing company. I had a good job at a local clothing company. When the pandemic hit, it was this totally different. And so we ended up fumbling for a little bit and then trying to find our feet and different directions. I got a job at the sweet local place I'm at now, and Tim ended up doing different things as well, and it's been a blessing, but we had to learn to adapt. We did decide to have a baby in the midst of the unknown. It wasn't the fairy tale thing we expected. We weren't in the financial situation we were 3 months before, but we felt like this was what God called us to do, and he was going to sustain us through that. That was different, so we didn't spoil the baby like we thought we were going to hope to, but we had so much family and friends surrounding us, loving on this baby, gifting these babies with the things that we couldn't afford. So it was sweet and it was precious, and it made us definitely appreciate the little things that people did for us.
Yeah, I would say the same kind of with the girls. Like, I mean, I grew up with them as babies too. I mean, I'm not that much older, but it's still like, I've always been surrounded by babies and my sister having babies. Like, I have a lot of friends who don't have that and they're like terrified to actually hold a baby. Mm-hmm. So I was really grateful that like my mom has always surrounded us with family.
We're all very comfortable with holding babies. Like,
yeah,
like come here, give me your baby. I got it.
Exactly. So like that part of my expectation, like I was excited. Like that was exactly how I thought it'd be. And like my heart loves Connor like nothing I've ever experienced. But yeah, same with them. My expectations, like it definitely is, it's a different world than what I had pictured. Like going out and just even everybody like have their faces covered. It's like, I want him to see smiles. I want him to see faces. It is a different world than what I had expected. Different things, like we had planned to go to Europe together and we were like, we'll conceive in Europe. And then it was literally going to be on our anniversary in March. And then COVID happened right then. So we were like, well, I'm not going to go to Europe for a while. So finally it was June or July, would it have been, that we got pregnant? June, yeah. So finally like March, April, May, and then we're like, all right, you know what? We're not going to put this off anymore. We had been married 5 years at that point. And I wasn't getting younger. I'm like 30 now. So I was like, it's time to have babies. I want to have more than one. So, you know, like I would go to Europe just with my husband and we'd experience, go wine tasting, be there for weeks. And that didn't happen. But like, hey, maybe it'll happen in the future and we'll bring
and Connor will just be there with you.
Exactly. So there's definitely things that you picture that COVID kind of threw a little wrench in.
But it obviously didn't deter you guys from deciding to get pregnant. Your desire that God put in your heart to be mothers was definitely something that no matter that the world was going crazy, it didn't change. We're going to have babies and we're going to still want to do that, even if it looks different than what we expected.
I don't think the world should ever dictate what God is calling you to do. So the world is always going to be doing crazy things. There's always going to be hard times. There's going to be good times, but I don't think that should ever change your opinion and change your direction of what God's calling you to do. And that goes with anything, I think. So yeah, I don't think you can ever wait for the perfect time for something to fall into place. If God wants you to do something, you need to just take a step of faith and do it, even if it seems unwise to the surrounding world.
Well, and I think about too, you know, early on in creation, there's always been wars and crazy stuff happening, but obviously people continue to have families. Mm-hmm. And if they didn't, there wouldn't be people if people didn't have babies during hard times. So I think it's really cool that you guys did that. And Kevin and I don't have kids, but even like us getting married young was a very controversial thing. You know, I was 19 when we got married. You don't even know who you are yet. You need to like figure out who you are. Like, I can't tell you how many people told me that. And I was like, no, I'm supposed to marry him. You know, like I know right now, this is what God's called me to do. Like marriage was something I knew God called me to. I totally understand and get that. What were your biggest fears in terms of unknowns into bringing a baby into this world?
I mean, honestly, for me, I would go through these moments of, I grew up we'd go to Disneyland every single week. Like we'd be out, we'd be in public, like, will this world ever get back to normal where I'll be able to take my son to Disneyland? And like, even though that's the smallest thing, will he be able to be in society? Like there was points in COVID where it was scary and you were like, yeah, we're going to be a family, we're God-centered and we trust God. He says in scripture what's going to happen with this world and we know that's coming. So that was like one of my big fears. Will he ever have a normal life? Like there's times I'm like, are we going to be stuck in our house 24/7? Is he ever going to be able to go outside our front yard? Like, I don't know. You know, I had to just cling to like God and just trust that this is his perfect plan. And at the end of the day, we all know where we'll be and just trust him.
What about you, Anna?
For me, it wasn't the virus itself that gave me any type of fear. It was more the surrounding culture that went around the pandemic, not just COVID, but you think of 2020 and it was wild. It was a wild ride for all the different things that were going on.
Very tumultuous.
Yes, very tumultuous. And so it's all of those things that gave me more concern for what type of world we would be walking in. And it was hard because there was so much dissension and then there was so much controversy and everyone had to pick sides. You got shamed for being neutral on all the issues that were coming in. So you had to pick a side. And it was, family against family. And all these people were having such dissension with each other. And I remember there was a time in the summer of 2020, everyone's on lockdown, everyone's kind of going crazy in their heads. I remember there was conspiracy theories going on during that time. A lot of stuff that I got hooked on. I mean, they were talking about such evil, especially to babies and kids, evil that was going on and all the secrets in Hollywood and this and that. And I was reading about them at first to quote unquote, educate myself. So I'm not, a sheltered bubble person. And then also, so I know how to pray. But then it turned into almost an obsession where I would read all these things online and they were not even proven to be true. And it would be the last thing I read on my phone before I went to bed. So that was the last thing I'm thinking. And then I was remembering when I was pregnant, this is not what God calls us to dwell on in our minds. This is not good and holy and peaceful and loving. This is evil that I'm dwelling on. Not that I'm condoning it, but I'm thinking about it. So it was during that time that I had to stop. If God calls me to pray for something, I will pray for it. Try to be discerning. I do believe Christians should be savvy to what is going on in politics. However, we don't need to consume our minds with the maybes that are happening.
That's a good point to how God kind of supported you when the world was crazy and you were pregnant.
Right. I had to say, okay, I'm carrying this baby and what my mind and how I'm thinking my spirit is going to affect the baby. And so as the year went on, I had to keep that in the forefront of my mind. How are we going to focus our home to be a safe place where we're not dwelling on these things? It's not the pinpoint of every single conversation. That's kind of how it got to be in society too. Everything everyone was talking about.
Yeah, and I'll echo that on it. That's one thing, like they always say, you want to be calm, you want to not stress. You don't stress out the baby. And that was really hard. Things would come up and I'd get emotional. My husband would be watching a video on YouTube and I'd be like, I can't hear that video right now. Like I just see that go away. He's like, babe, but it's what's happening in the world. I was like, yeah, but I'm going to be in La La Land for a little bit. I don't want to hear all that.
Right. And I don't think we need to be living with our heads in the sand. Again, I do believe that we need to be aware of what's going on, but there is a point where if it becomes consumptive or you are carrying a child and you need to protect that child or you have little children in the home, there is a time to protect them, I think.
For sure. Yeah,
definitely. Allie, what about you in terms of what were your biggest fears as you were pregnant with Leif? Your mom was like, everything's going to be back to normal by the time you have him. And you're like, and it's not normal.
I very much trust my mom. So her word just puts an ease in my heart. Like even if it's not true and I know it's not true, I call her up. I'm like, Mom, I'm worried, I'm scared. And she's like, it's fine. I'm like, okay, it's fine. And so she was an encouragement to me through that time because it was so uncertain. So her telling me that, yeah, maybe it wasn't true, but it really did put peace in me that she had hope that it was going to be okay. But I think I didn't look too far ahead in the future. My biggest worry probably was the last 2-3 months when I realized, this is real life and I'm going to deal with this very soon. My biggest fear was probably, and I kind of made this up, I don't think this is really how it went down, but this is my thought that would happen. And like Anna said, there's so many conspiracy theories and stuff like that people are just shooting out information. Who knows if it's true? So I don't know if I heard this from someone who didn't have the right information. Thought if I had tested positive for COVID, that I wouldn't be able to hold my baby and stuff like that, and they would have him in a different room, and that my husband and Leif would be sent home after 24 hours when they got cleared, and then I would have to be at the hospital alone for 2 weeks. And there were a lot of cases where people were in the hospital alone, and I think that was my biggest fear because I don't do well alone. Alone is not good for me. Taking my baby away is not good for me. With my first baby, he was in the NICU for about 3 days, and like him being away from me, that was no good for me. I had a C-section. I walked down 2 floors every couple hours just to see him, walked up and down. So he had gone home and I was in the hospital, and maybe that wouldn't have happened. I really don't know. But in my mind, that was something that kept playing. Like, I'm going to be trapped in the hospital. They're going to be sent home, and maybe I won't see them for 2 weeks. And so that was like my biggest fear. And I can't remember, maybe I did, but I can't remember looking past that. Like, I kind of have stopped. Once I have the baby and once I get home, I'll be okay and things will be okay.
But the hospital was uncertain.
That was what I was afraid of, because that's not something you can control. It's someone else's decisions and their protocol, and I'm putting myself in their care. So what they say, for the most part, goes. And so that was what made me afraid, was giving myself over to them, I guess you would say. But I had just convinced myself once I got home I'd be okay. So I don't really remember thinking into life like Anna and Tori did, being like, will it be normal again, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure I had those fears every once in a while, but I was just so like blocked by the birth of it.
Yeah. Well, and you're not the only person who I've heard that from, like during COVID.
Well, and I have heard that too, and that's one of the reasons why I was like, okay, I'm going to go midwife. I'm going to try to do this on natural so I don't have to even deal with the hospital. Long story on, well, not you guys don't all know. That's listening, you guys know.
Why don't we transition into just kind of, you can tell a little bit about your birth stories. We're kind of already going in that direction, but I want each of you to share how it went for you.
So for me, I decided to go with a midwife, and I went into labor early. And I was wanting my sister Savannah to be there. She was flying, and I started going into labor having consistent contractions, and she was still at home getting ready to leave to head to the airport. So she wasn't going to be with me for like another 18 hours or so. And my sister used to have like 5 babies.
She'd had 5 babies at that point, and her last one she had at home.
My birth plan. I have it written out. My birth plan, she's involved. And so I think that really kind of put a blocker, and like she'll say it too. Like I was like, no, Savannah has to be there. This is where it's going to be. That kind of slowed me down. So long story short, I was in labor for like 72 hours. I went into labor before Anna. Anna had her baby before me. So I ended up going into labor on the 15th. I had Connor on the 18th. I did end up in a C-section at the hospital. Yeah, so I mean, it's all God's plan. And I got this next one down. I'm like, yeah, like, I know what else. Yeah.
All downhill from here. You can get that.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not expecting anybody. The only person I want there is Bobby now. I'm like, I can't have this stress. So, Savannah, you have to be here. I'm like, oh, shoot. Sometime.
I feel like with Tori's story, you know, women like to share their birth stories and kind of top each other on who has the worst. Freaking labored naturally for like 3 days, and then had a C-section. She's like, oh, I'm topping both departments.
It was intense. It was not what I expected, what I planned, and maybe that's God teaching me, like, hey, it's my plan, not yours. Let go.
Darn it. I hate learning those lessons.
I know.
So I'm also in the C-section club over here as well for our first babies. I had this awesome thing called cholestasis, which is long story short, it's a liver malfunction that happens during your 3rd trimester. It basically, so your liver is not flushing out toxins, and that becomes dangerous for baby. The bile levels can get to a point where it causes fetal decease. It can be serious. Or it can be, the baby can be fine. So they got to a point where then they're monitoring her, and her heartbeat became irregular, and they just gave us the option like, hey, we need to get this baby out pronto. I literally was not in labor at all. My body was very comfortable the way it was. I was not dilated. Cervix wasn't soft. It was nothing. I was in the hospital, and even trying to induce me. Nothing was happening. So my husband and I decided for me to have the baby via C-section to protect her so that we wouldn't lose her. And while I was in the hospital, because of that whole thing was the most dramatic thing that was happening, everything, COVID really kind of went by the wayside. Yes, we had a test before we came in and wore masks in the hallways, all that.
Did you have to wear a mask while you were in your rooms?
Praise the Lord, not. So we were both tested before we came in. So we're kind of cleared, so to speak. And so while we were in our little room all by ourselves, we didn't have to. So that made the stay a lot more comfortable. And our nurses were very sweet about it. They never asked us to. So that really didn't affect us too much. The only thing that was a bummer was you don't have all the sweet visitors come afterwards. And that is sad. I remember for us, the hospital that I had her in overlooks the pretty mountainside where we live, but if you look down, there's the parking lot. And my mom came one time to bring us a little coffee. She couldn't come up, but Tim could go down to the parking lot, meet her, get the goods, come back up. And I had like a little Lion King moment where I just held Cozy up at the window and she waved down below in the parking lot. And that was her quote unquote meeting Cozy. So it's like a sweet, funky little memory that we have, but it was sad. I don't know about you guys, but it was sad not having all the people gathering in your little.
That's been like a normal thing, like with our families and whatever. Right. And we're in the hospital, like everyone comes and sees the baby. I think Allie was in the hospital overnight with Savannah for Hazel, right?
Yeah.
And then
in pajamas. They were
And I know for me as Tori's sister, that was really hard. I saw her at the midwife place while she was in the middle of labor on St. Patty's Day on March 17th. And that was hard, first of all, to see her with so much pain and everything she was going through. Then once she got to the hospital, we got this text of like a video of her saying, I'm doing good. And it just felt so weird to not be able to like be there, you know? Okay. So Allie, tell about your birth story with Leif.
So for my first baby, I had a C-section. I would have maybe done a home birth, but because my first birth was so traumatic,
it was like an emergency situation.
It was an emergency C-section. He needed to be out within 6 minutes, or he was gonna die.
You can correct me. They didn't even have time for anesthesia, right?
Oh, no, they didn't. So if you want me to tell Duke's story first, I should do that.
Tell Duke's story. I think it'll be good just for comparison too.
Yeah. So with Duke, I was induced. I was 2 weeks late. So I was just induced. It was very normal. Everything was normal with him. Everything was normal with me. I do think they had my due date off. Like I said, I got married and then I got pregnant on my honeymoon. And my mom kept telling me, like I said, she gets into my life a lot, but I didn't want to believe her in this specific thing because I told her, you can't know everything. I didn't think she was allowed to know everything. She was like, it's impossible for your due date to be that if you got pregnant on your honeymoon because that's not the full 9 months. And I was like, I wanted my baby here so bad. I was like, Mom, stop. Of course that's my due date. I want my baby as early as possible. So they said I was 2 weeks late, but I don't think I was just because of timing. There's no possible way. And so they induced me. He wasn't ready. My body wasn't ready. And so I did progress. I dilated. It was like a 32-hour labor. And then the last, I want to say it happened within 10 minutes. Like I was pushing, and what would happen is he just wouldn't come. He was stuck. And he was tied so tightly around his cord because they had upped my Pitocin so much that the contractions didn't stop. He was just being compressed. Heart rate would drop and it would be down for a minute. It would be pump, a minute would go by, nothing. Pump, a minute would go by, nothing. The nurse went and got the doctor and he said, yeah, this baby's going to die unless he's out within 6 minutes. So I had nurses on either side of me pulling off my reins, having me sign things. Who knows what I signed. Signing like paper after paper after paper, like called my mom and told her like, I'm going to go into C-section. That was it. And then they wheeled me off, and within 6 minutes, the baby was out. But I didn't have time to have anesthesia. The anesthesiologist,
that's right.
He came in. He was like, I don't have time to do it. And the doctor's like, I need him out now. I need him out now. And like they're yelling, I'm crying.
Yeah. You would.
He's like, I'm going to give you this. And he pulls something out of his pocket. He's like, I'm going to give you this, and you're going to be okay. And I was like, okay. And my nurse was so sweet. She's like wiping my tears, petting my hair. She's like, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. I'm like, okay. And he pulls something out of his pocket. He puts it like in a little tube thing. And I start seeing 3 heads. Like Nate sitting by me. He has 4 heads. He's saying stuff. It's very movie-esque where like it was so weird. And I asked Nate after, I was like, did I talk to you? And he's like, yeah, you seem normal. I was like, honey, I was not normal. Not it. But Duke was born. He was out. I thought he was fine. I went to my room. He was in the NICU. Hours later, I got to see him. Like I said, I would walk after a C-section. I would walk down.
Which that's very impressive, by the way.
Yeah.
Out there.
So impressive.
I would walk down to see him, and he was in the NICU. He had tubes up and down everywhere. You know, they were telling me, oh, he's going to be okay. He's fine. Because he wasn't preemie. He was a big boy. Not really. He was 7 pounds. But, like, he was fully developed, you know. And so I thought, okay, he's fine, whatever. And it wasn't till the last day he was in the NICU. We had this little nurse, and she was the sweetest thing. She would sing him songs. She loved him. He smiled at her. Very sweet nurse. And we were about to take him to the room, and she's like, you know what happened to him, right? And we're like, oh yeah, like he was having a hard time, whatever. And she's like, oh no, he was pronounced dead. They revived him. He was not alive when he came out. We didn't know that. We had him in the NICU. We were like, oh, he's fine. It wasn't until we got him in our room that we realized he wasn't fine. The nurses at the hospital saved him. So that was a huge reason why with my next baby, I really wanted to have a hospital birth, because I would have lost my first baby if I would have been at home. Yeah. So that was his birth. It was very traumatic. Not really for me, because during the time I wasn't worried. I had this peace. I wasn't worried. I wasn't stressed. It wasn't until I got him into my room and I held him, he had no tubes in him, he was doing fine, that I really knew what happened to him. So actually it was a very peaceful experience for me, but looking back on it, it's very intense. And I remember with my checkup, like my postpartum checkup, like 2 weeks or whatever, I came in and the lady's looking at my C-section scar and she's like, oh, your emergency C-section, I can tell. I was like, okay, cool, that's great, thank you. Because it was like a little scar. And I was like, oh, okay. She's like, I'm going to get your papers really quick. And I was like, okay. And she like got my papers, she's just like silent. Like, and I still don't know what are on these papers, but like, I just wondered, she's like, oh, okay, wow. Yeah, okay, you look good for what happened to you. And I was like, excuse me? I still don't know what's on those papers, but like, something crazy.
Oh my gosh. So that was Duke. And then, so when you had Leif, you were definitely like, I'm going in the hospital. But now, of course, you're like, okay, I don't want to have COVID, so I can have my baby near me and all of that.
So with Leif, I wanted to be back really bad. And the only person I have known who had gone through a C-section, because I had Leif before Tori and Anna had their baby. So
you had Leif in September, and Tori and Anna had Cozy and Connor in March of 2020.
The following year, yeah. And so the only person I had known that did that was Savannah, and she had a C-section, and then with her next babies, she had VBACs. And so I really just consulted in her over and over and over and over again, like every day, calling her, texting her. What do I do? How do I do this? How do I advocate for myself? Because my doctors didn't want me to have a VBAC, and there was no medical reason. It's just easier once you have a C-section to continue with C-sections. VBACs are more risky, and they just don't want to deal with it a lot of times. And so the nurses I was going to, they were like, you're fine, you don't need to ask questions. They're like, no, just don't worry about it. We'll schedule you a C-section. And I was like, no, I don't want one. And finally they just scheduled me a C-section, and I just didn't show up. And like, of course, I'm calling Savannah, I'm like, I didn't show up. She's like, it's fine, they can't make you show up, it's fine. I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. She's like,
knock on my door.
And so like I just didn't show up, and I would have if my baby was in danger, but my baby wasn't in danger. He was healthy, head was down, there was nothing to worry about in his sense, and my body was preparing for labor as well. So I would of course choose C-section if it was going to save my baby's life or my life. I don't have anything against C-section. It's just like I wanted to try to let my body do the work. And so I missed my C-section. They called me every day, absolutely terrifying, saying like, we want you, like you need to be in here right away. We need you to come in. If you don't come in, we're going to call these people and blah, blah, blah. Like long messages that were like terrifying. And I would, every time I would get a message, I would like, call my mom, like, they called me again. She's like, it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's fine. I was like, my body went into labor. It was only an 8-hour labor, which was insane. With Duke, I had a 32-hour labor. And I was 2 weeks late with Duke, supposedly. And I was 2 weeks late with Leif as well, but my body went into labor. I got to the hospital, the most normal and calm experience ever. I got to the hospital, they checked me, they put me in a room, they gave me an epidural. I was the only woman on the floor giving birth, so I had everyone's attention. I didn't need any Pitocin. I didn't need anything to help my labor progress. I gave birth, and literally, like, I just had so many people praying for me, and I definitely felt that, and I definitely had like a very beautiful birth and like very positive after that first experience, and it was just really, fulfilling, I guess, to have.
Which is so cool considering how the world was so tumultuous and there was those like unknowns of like, okay, if I test positive for COVID, what's going to happen? The fact that your body did it, gave birth. That's such a cool thing. And that it was so peaceful for you, especially. And I remember when we were praying for you, just that it was so sweet to know that it was good in comparison, because it was scary with Duke, just not knowing what was going to transpire. So that was like such a cool thing to hear. And I love that. So there's 2 hospitals in town that people typically have babies in, and you were scheduled at one of them. So when you went in for labor, you went into a different one?
Yeah. So my OBGYN was connected to one of the hospitals in town that was pro C-section. Once you had the C-section, it was basically determined that you would have C-sections for the rest of your babies. And that was hooked up to my OBGYN. So anytime I'd ask them, can I not have a C-section, they'd basically be like, no, we don't do that, sorry. Any no option. And so that's when I would consult Savannah, being like, what do I do? She's like, just go to the other hospital. They're pro VBAC. They want you to have a VBAC. Like, that's what they prefer. They want your body to work the way it's supposed to, and their doctors are trained for that. So she just kept telling me to go to the other one. And so I just showed up at the other hospital, and when I was checked and all that, they have your papers and, your history, and they're looking at them, and I was like, yeah, I had a C-section with my first baby, and I don't want one. I want to try a VBAC. And they're like, oh, perfect. That's what we were hoping for anyways. And that like blew me away because, for the last 9 months, I'm all stressing about this. Like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to talk my way into this? I'm going to find something, whatever, And
you're like rehearsing what you're going to say.
Yes, exactly. And like for them to be like, oh, yeah, that's what we want. And I'm like, you want the same thing as me? So that was really encouraging. And like literally from there, just everything went perfectly.
Hey everyone, we're back with an exciting update.
By now, you may have heard about our premarital guidance course that we've had in the works.
It's a course you can purchase and take on your own time from the comfort of your home at a pace that works for you and your fiancé.
And we finally have a release date. Hubby, drumroll please. September 8, 2022.
Whoop, whoop. That's right, the course will be launching on our 20th wedding anniversary.
I'm just so excited to offer some incredible tools for you to take into marriage so you can have your best chance to beat the 50% of marriages that are ending in divorce.
Hey, baby.
Yeah?
I've got an idea. How about offering special pricing for everyone who buys in the month of September in honor of our 20th wedding anniversary?
Oh, I love that. If you or anyone you know are getting married and looking for a little guidance prior to walking down the aisle, be sure to pass the word on.
Stay tuned to Real Housewives of the Kingdom for details coming soon on where to sign up and what you can expect from the course and pricing, including our special deal. Now, back to the show.
And none of you had any, like they tested you for COVID and none of you had it and it was just fine.
Praise the Lord. They did test me, but I did not have it, and neither did Tim.
Yeah, they tested me. They did not test Bobby. So Bobby, if a nurse came in, like some of them didn't care, but some would be like, sir, please put up your mask if they came in to check me. They were on him about that, but they never said no, just after her recovery.
So interesting. What is your vision for raising your kids now that the world has changed moving forward as parents?
Yeah, I feel like I've always known, like, I want to raise my family, my kids, to love God, seek God, be the full armor of God over them. They know that they're warriors for Christ and stuff. But, like, when you go through a time like COVID, it also kind of really inflames you in that. This is the last day. We need to train our kids up to be strong, to be courageous, to pray the full armor of God over them, to pray over them that they know Him, that they seek Him, that they seek His counsel. I just pray that over Connor every single night. And my goal and my prayer is just that he does know God, he seeks Him, and that he is a light for him, and he's this little warrior, that there's things going on left and right, controversy, opinions, and they try to make it seem like, oh, it's no big deal. Different things going on right now, especially. And it's like, I want him to be so strong in his faith that he knows what's right and that he can stand for that. So with something like this happening in life, it's like almost a blessing because it makes you almost, implement that more into their lives. It's his walk with Christ and that he knows him and seeks him.
Awesome. What about you guys, Ali and Anna? Do you have any other things to add?
Definitely, I think it's so important to have a foundation on God, and I think them knowing scripture and having it just taught to them day and night is so important, and just to grow up knowing what the Bible says, what it teaches, and what God's law is, and to love the law of God, to enjoy it. And I think as parents, it's so important to show your children how to enjoy loving God, how to enjoy obeying God, and how to find joy in even things the world says is stupid or not important, and just to show your kids how to live that out daily. And I think to show the world too that children are a blessing. I think the world thinks children are a burden, and I think it's so important to speak highly of your children, to enjoy them, to treat them as blessings and not burdens. And I don't see a lot of parents doing that these days, just to enjoy that because God's called you to do it, and He'll bless you through it, and He'll take you through it. And if you choose to enjoy it, you will enjoy it. And if you choose to have joy and appreciate it, and it's a choice, it's not always easy, but to choose to do that is so important. And I think it's so important to surround yourself with other people who do that, like Tori, Savannah. I know that when Savannah comes with all 6 of her babies, and she just enjoys it, and you can tell her kid will be sassy or rude, and she doesn't speak ill of them. She'll handle it in private, and she will correct it, but she enjoys it. And children are sassy, children are rude, they disobey. That's having children, and that's just the way it goes. But to see her handle it with poise and godliness, and it's just to surround yourself with other like-minded moms is so important. I know every time Savannah comes, after she leaves, I feel like a better mom. Hey, she's got this, and I got this too. And she can do it with 5 babies. I can do it too, and I can enjoy it. She enjoys going on a plane ride with 6 babies. I enjoy giving breakfast to my 2, and get pregnant. So I think to surround yourself with other moms who show obviously moms struggle and there's hard days, and it's okay to express that to one another, but to also encourage and share joys and triumphs through being a mother, and just to count your children as blessings like God tells us they are. I think that's super important.
Well, and I would say too, our family wasn't quite as big as your family. You guys have 6 kids in your family, and we have 4 in our family. And even for us, I know that my mom would get people saying, oh my gosh, you have so many kids. I never felt like with your family, it seemed like there was a lot of kids, or our family seemed like a lot. We were just each other's people. And that's how I feel with Savannah's kids. They're my people. Yeah, she's got several of them, but there's several of my people. And it's funny because when I say, oh, my sister's pregnant with number 7, people's faces are like, whoa, it's so crazy. I'm like, no, it's awesome. She loves it. She's an awesome mom and she has fun now. And I think that that was really sweet what you said, Ali, just honing in on that positive about your kids. And I think that helps you. There are bad days and good days. And like you said, kids can be ornery or whatever. But I think it's sweet that you guys have all decided to create a a atmosphere in your home that will prepare your children. Even if you kind of have an expectation initially how life was going to be, kind of pivoting with how COVID and everything, I love how you guys just didn't skip a beat and you all just moved into motherhood. And Allie, you were already a mom, but you just continued into it. Like, yeah, that sucks that the world is like this right now, but here's this joyful part that I get to be part of. And I'm going to just enjoy that. And I love hearing that from all of you. Did you guys have any other things you wanted to add? And Allie just gave some really good advice, but would you have any other wisdom or advice you want to add before we close?
I read something that alluded to having children and modeling themselves after biblical characters. And you think about all the people that we admire from the Bible, basically all of them we admire because they went through really hard times and they were raised up in godliness so that they were prepared to go through the hard times that they conquered, and that we have these amazing stories that we read from them. One of my favorite characters in the Bible is Elizabeth, the mother of John the Baptist. She has like the teeniest, tiniest little part in one gospel, but her story is so sweet to me because not only did she encourage Mary in her pregnancy, which was terrifying for Mary, I'm sure. She greeted her saying, "Blessed are you who are above all women." Right off the bat, she's encouraging her. But she raised her baby knowing he was going to be someone that God was going to use. So I think if we have that perspective of let's raise these babies knowing God is going to use them, think of how much more inspiration we would have if the angel came to us and said, "Your child is going to be used by me in powerful ways." We would say, "Oh my gosh, then I need to train them so that they're prepared for whatever that thing God is going to do through them." And the Holy Spirit is in all of us. It will be in all of our children who follow after the Lord. So we have that confidence. So I think if we raise our children with that forethought, there'll be so much more direction and so much more passion for raising your kids to be the people that God has called them to be. That is the best form of discipleship, raising your kids, and then they go out and touch people. It starts at home, starts with firm foundations that the world can be going crazy all around us. But if the family unit is strong, that is going to change culture.
I love that. I love that little bit about Elizabeth. It's that mind shift of not just let me get them out of my house alive at 18, but let me be intentional about their day in, day out. Honestly, there's so little that matters, like that is of this world, that this world values. And I hope that people listening would take this as just an encouragement to shift their thinking on that and to really make their home a sweet space and to be able to send their kids out with intention, saying, "You're going to do great things for God."
Our parents, your mama, were very similar in saying, "Hey, your siblings are your best friends. You don't get to have friends until you treat siblings right." And sometimes I was annoying when you're 11 and you just want to go play with your friend down the street. But all of us can attest to that wisdom that they had and the discipline that they had to say, "Hey, build this family unit. These people right here, like you said, these are your people." So that when you grow up in the world, everything else gets stripped away. We still had that family unit. We weren't scrambling to have relationships with people who could support us. They were already there.
Kind of like you guys, actually, like already having kind of a vision of what you wanted for your families. And Tori, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think also, I really try to be present in every single day, not to worry about tomorrow, not to worry about what's going on in the world, but just to focus on, this is my time with my little buddy. He's only going to be in my home for such a short time. 18, well, I'm like, you can stay in my home until you're 30. No, I'm kidding. I would want him to get married and find a wife, but no, but just really focusing in on the day to day and just being present in the time that you're with him and just teaching him the foundations and not to be so worried about what tomorrow might bring.
I love that. Those were all really good encouragements. Thank you guys. I love your hearts. I'm over here trying not to cry because I'm so proud of you guys. Because just watching you guys from the time you're little, and I'm so proud of you guys as mothers and just as women of God, because we need that. And you guys are raising little warriors for the kingdom. Why don't you guys just quickly share, say your name so people know I'm sure they've picked up on whose voice is whose already, but just share who you are and where people can find and follow you if they would like to.
Okay, I'll start. So I'm Victoria Mendez, and you can find me on Instagram at Victoria Mendez91. Allie. My Instagram is Alethea Laurel, which is hard to spell, but if you get it, you get it. There you go.
And I'm Anna or Anastacia. I'm also on Instagram at Anastacia Dosimer. Again, a mouthful, so good luck with that.
I'll link it in the show notes so that you can
post
actually it'll just be like a clip. We are going to end with rapid fire questions. What is your life verse or favorite scripture and why?
My life verse has always been Proverbs 3:5-6, which is trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not onto your own understanding. All your ways acknowledge him and he'll direct your path, make your path straight. So that's just always a verse that has been deep in my heart, just to trust him always. And yeah, I trust that he'll show me where to go.
My favorite verse is Luke 18:16, but Jesus called them to him, saying, "Let the children come to me, and do not hinder them, for such belongs the kingdom of God." And I think that verse is just very encouraging in how Jesus views children and how the world views children. The world views children saying, "Don't bother God with them, you're annoying him or whatever," and he says, "No, I value them and they will inherit my kingdom and they're important." And I think it just is like such a good reminder how we should view children.
I love Ecclesiastes 3:11. He, God, has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart, yet so he cannot find out what God has done from beginning to the end. So that just gives me hope that no matter what we go through, God creates beauty from ashes.
All really good, guys. And I love that they were all very different. You can even just see with those scriptures how those have carried you guys through your purposes for what God's called you to. Where's your favorite vacation spot?
I'd say me and Bobby, like my favorite vacation I've gone on with Bobby is at Costa Rica. I don't know, I love monkeys. And like literally we'd be in an outdoor shower and like the monkeys would come on the little patio and I just thought that was so crazy. I love the beach. I love tropical vacation spot Costa Rica.
My favorite vacation spot is Hawaii because we can't go wrong with it. The tan, the water is beautiful, so my favorite place.
My favorite vacation that I went on was our honeymoon. We went to Bali, which is in Indonesia, also a beautiful tropical place. We had the best time there. The water was also beautiful. And there's just a sweet sentimental value of our little first vacation together. So.
Yeah, that like clinging to each other the first place you go. It's such a sweet time. Okay, and if you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
You changed your question.
No,
I said this is the questions I sent, but in my normal one, yes, you're right. I normally ask.
I'm a faithful listener, and you changed it. If I had
power, yes, I would be a jumper, like a teleporter. Where I like envision where I want to go. So like if I think I would be there in Savannah, if I think I can go drink wine with Caroline.
Yeah, right now.
Oh shoot,
that's always what I think.
Well, Bobby and Connor would be a jumper. Yeah, if I'm touching them.
Yeah, like
yeah,
you bring them.
Of course. Yeah.
Because I said that too, but then I was like, if I can't bring them, I don't really want to go anywhere.
That's true.
I said I would do memorization. Like if I could just read something or hear a language, memorize it. See a dance, memorize it. Just be good at everything, I guess.
Like total photocopy. Like you could just in a second do anything.
See something, memorize it like forever.
That would be really handy.
Be very useful.
Yeah, that would be really useful.
Mine is awful, but I would love to either read minds or be invisible because I'm super nosy. So I'd be like getting in all the conversations. It's a good thing I'm not a superhero because it's purely self-gaining. So
so because this isn't my normal questions, because I have been trying to change them up a little bit on the podcast just because I think it's kind of fun to change it up a little bit. For me, the invisible thing, I actually like the invisible thing, even though I'm a super social person and I love being around people. You know, in Harry Potter, they have like the invisibility cloak.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, I want an invisibility cloak. Sometimes I just want to be invisible and not because I want to listen to people's conversations like Anna, but
I want the dirt, okay? I just want to be
and you're like, I just want to be around people 24/7, even if like they don't see talking. I love it.
Just give me all the juicy gossip. That's all I care about.
Oh man. Oh my goodness. Okay. I love it. That's awesome. Okay, you guys. Well, this was really fun, and I'm so excited for everybody to hear all of your encouragement in the Children and Parenting series. I think that there's a lot of good stuff here. Tori, Anna, Allie, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Love you.
Thank you. Love you.
Okay, friends, that's it for today. I'm truly grateful you joined us. If you think others would be encouraged by this episode, you can easily share it by taking a screenshot and adding it to your stories or feed. You can also text it to a friend. New episodes are available every Friday. Be sure to subscribe so you can catch them all. You can find and interact with me on Facebook and Instagram at Married Rogers Neighborhood, as well as my website, which I linked in the show notes. If you enjoyed the show today, I would so appreciate if you could take a second to rate and give a 5-star review. It helps more people find it, which makes a huge difference for me and the podcast. Just remember, we are in this together. God loves you, and you are not alone. See you next time.